The following audio commentary was recorded prior to Elliot Page coming out as transgender. Please keep that in mind as you listen. Previous commentaries in this film series can be found in the link in the description. Thank you. Hi, everybody. We're continuing the X-Men movie commentaries, this time with The Last Stand. So we're going to get right into it. Both of us have our movies queued up. As usual, if you'd like to watch along, then queue up your own copy, get it to timestamp 0, and once I say now, we're all going to unpause. If you don't have a copy of the movie, then you can just listen to this on its own. But yeah, without further ado, we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, now. So this is a movie that we've both briefly, to varying degrees, talked about here before, and I've made a whole video on it a couple of months back about a particular scene. So I'll probably let you take over when we get to that scene. But yeah, remind me? I feel like you might have mentioned it in the previous commentaries, but how did you feel if/when you saw this one in theaters? Did you have like the same kind of general fan consensus of like, God, this was garbage coming off of X2, or what?
Well, I didn't see this in the theater. Like I said, the first X-Men movie I seen in the theater is First Class. But
Right, you did say that.
I saw this a ridiculous amount of times on FX. They ran this movie constantly.
They still do. Like, this is their bread and butter.
Yeah. So growing up with it as a kid, um, I found it entertaining enough. I didn't think it was a genuinely good as X2. But then, you develop more of like a critical mind about things and like critically, yeah, this is one of the worst X-Men movies. It's
Yeah,
bizarre in its handling of the Phoenix Saga, and I think fundamentally it's got to pick one of the two major storylines it's doing. You can't do both in one movie. You can't do Phoenix Saga and um like let's have a cure for all the mutants. Those two things don't really go together. And
I mean, again,
Phoenix
like
Saga,
we've
I
said this
don't think
already.
you can really even do properly all in one movie.
Yeah, like I still stand by Cap's maxim. Anything can work. You just have to make it work. I think there's a perfectly conceivable reality where a movie exists that has both of these two things in it and manages to juggle them well. I don't think it's impossible to fit these two in one place. I think you have to do what I'm kind of more willing to do, not being a massive X-Men comics fan, which is just accept whatever version of the Dark Phoenix that we do is not going to be the comics version. And so I'm of the opinion that like this movie doesn't work because it is a sequel, and significantly less so because it is an adaptation. But if you remove being a follow-up to X1 and X2, and especially if you remove being any kind of direct adaptation of the Dark Phoenix saga, this is just kind of a fine, perfectly average dumb action movie. And like I personally find things in it to enjoy, and like whenever I watch it, I'm having a good time, and I'm about as invested as I am in X1 and X2. Like if you listen to the previous commentaries, I'm not the hottest person on either of those movies. I think both of them, especially the first one, have significant flaws. So I wasn't someone who, in like 2006, was coming off of X2 having been 2 years ago and being like, this is up there with Spider Man 2 was like the holy grail of what we can do with the Marvel Comics adaptation, because X2 had that reputation for a long while. And I feel like without that reputation, this movie doesn't land nearly as badly as it does. I think this is just part three in what's already a series of mostly okay action movies. And I
This is
think
this is an interesting way to open. Well, technically, we don't necessarily open the movie this way because we had the flashback with Jean, but
mhm.
it's a pretty intense thing to put in in a family film.
Yeah, in a movie where Angel is actually like a significant character, I would say this is a really, really great, like you said, not really opening scene, but like
I
it's
wouldn't even
got
call
that
him a
feel.
significant character. As powerful as that moment is, he's barely in this movie. He doesn't even interact with the X-Men until the end of the movie.
Yeah, and like I think you could still justify it narratively as like even if he's
Doing
not a
anything
significant
with him and the
character.
cure, maybe. I'm not saying he has to get the cure, but he needs to be more significant to the overall story than he is. Like he shows
Well, yeah,
up
that
with the
I'm not
dad,
disagreeing
and
with
that's
that.
it.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying with the little that we do give him to do in this movie, he's basically outside of Rogue, he's the one character who's like he is the stand-in for mutants who are thinking about taking the cure and like we do he's our eyes into what that process is like. And I think even if he's not a significant character, opening with this scene of like, oh yeah, of course, if like a little kid is going through this, of course he'd like think about at least wanting that cured. This is kind of the mindset of every mutant who is thinking about taking that cure. Like how many mutant kids have had to do something like that? And that's a good bit of yeah, it makes sense that a significant portion of people who would live through something like that would be like, yeah, give me the cure. Yes.
I really like the kind of fun like Sentinel Easter egg that this training scene evokes. Um, it is kind of strange for them to be practicing for this scenario that they have not even experienced yet and have no idea about. But it's a fun
Yeah.
comic book nod.
It's a
It's
very odd because this is part of the problem of this movie and movies like this around this time period not really having these characters exist in a status quo that's like the comics because we get it like Professor X is at a place where he's like okay this because there's such mutant discrimination there's always going to be a risk of a threat to my school and but we've dealt with Magneto and we've dealt with Stryker and we don't really get the impression that we live in a world where heightened threats like this are going to come around outside of those two examples. So like really except for the off chance that the military shows up like they did in X2, what are they expecting to happen? Like forget not having experienced the Sentinels, like what situation do you think is upcoming or potentially upcoming that they would need to practice against giant robots to be ready for?
yeah, it's just fan service. I really don't like this setup and payoff.
This the best defense is a good offense thing.
Yeah, you have to work as a team because we don't do anything with that until literally the payoff later where they repeat this line again. Like this is
Yeah,
not what the movie is about by any means.
yeah, no, and like that's a good lesson for someone like Wolverine to have to learn, and not something that he's gotten the opportunity to learn over movies 1 and 2, which is like you can't just power through, especially if these movies are going to try and justify making him, for all intents and purposes, the leader of the team. Yeah, that's a good arc for his character, but it's not actually the arc of this movie. And like the other thing, which is again in that same vein, something that doesn't pay off until that climax. I think the only reason, the other like fan service reason that we open with Sentinel fighting is because that's going to be the only time until the third act where this group of people gets to remotely act like a team and fight anything as a team.
This is true.
Because it's easy to get a little defensive and try and be like, Well, these movies they got a reputation increasingly for being like Wolverine movies more than they were X-Men movies. And like other characters do have stuff to do in this movie, but part of the problem is just structural, which is that we spend so much time following Wolverine because the team is not a team. They're not like doing things together.
I do really like that exchange we just had where
Hmm.
Cyclops is like, not everyone heals as fast as you.
Yeah. And again, carrying off of the end of the last movie, Logan is approaching him with some empathy, and that does show some character growth.
And we just couldn't wait to shaft Cyclops again.
I mean, to be fair, he had other obligations, not obligations that justified this, since that movie also didn't give him much to do.
In its
Poor
worst,
guy.
the Beast casting is spot on.
Yep. He's like one of the highlights of this movie.
And the president that we have here reminds me of the one that we have in the G.I. Joe films.
Yeah, I keep forgetting he's the president and not like another secretary. I'm not sure how I feel about having caught Mystique off screen.
Yeah, I don't love that.
Yeah,
It's
that really feels like something I'd have liked to have seen happen.
yeah, especially because we I think we're given the impression that it's planned since there's an ambush waiting for a Tristan transport with Magneto.
I'll have to double check that because you could be right, but I also got the impression that like he finds out where they're taking her, and he's like, okay, let's get Mystique back, and the other prisoners there are like a fringe benefit. So like I'll be looking out for like what the motivation for that is.
Okay, yeah, because that could also be it. It's been a while since I've seen this. Yeah, I really like Beast. He's not only just the sciencey character, but he's also really wise and offers a lot of great advice in the comics and in the 90s show.
Yeah,
And unlike a lot of his counterparts, him being a mutant is open on display for everyone to see. But I like that in certain comics and even in this movie, um, he's been able to a good chunk of people have like he's been able to rise above that in the eyes of a, a good bit of people. Like he's
yeah.
got a position in government, he's well respected, and he's a mutant, and you can tell.
And sadly, it really sucks that not only did we get and not only did we not get a better movie with this casting where he actually got to play a role significantly, where like he's one of the things that almost salvages this movie, but it's a shame we didn't get to see him in a good one. But when we do get to later movies where it's a different actor, it's Nicholas Hoult, he'll slowly go from a character I really like in those prequels to one of my least favorite things about those.
I really love Ellen Page as Kitty Pryde. She's she's kind of what I pictured her being. And I'm glad we finally. I mean, I wish she doesn't get enough in this movie, like a good bit of the cast here, but I really like her and a little bit she does have here. My
I
exposure to
think
Kitty
she's
Pryde, or at least my big thing that I get to know Kitty Pryde from prior to this movie is Ultimate Spider-Man when she's
ah,
a girlfriend for a bit in that run, and that was awesome. Um, and
she's
of course,
another thing where like in this movie I feel like if we'd given her a bigger role, then I feel like I'd really really like her, and like I She is a really good casting. She's not necessarily who I would have thought of as a choice for Kitty Pryde, but like I'd never really given that much thought. Like I couldn't tell you off the top of my head an actress that I think would just be perfect for how I'm used to thinking of Kitty Pryde, which is either the comics or Evolution.
And I haven't even seen her in anything aside from Juno prior to this, but I think she's kind of that inspired out of the box casting.
Yeah.
She's not the obvious choice, and I like that.
And like I've seen her in a couple of things, and like she's proven to have a lot of range. But yeah, it's just another one of those things where it's like really good casting choice, and for what she does get, it's good. I just wish we'd gotten more.
What's really weird is the X-Men is not really a team until the third act of this movie
Yeah.
and doesn't have a leader. Like Scott is the quasi leader, and Logan just stepped in for that training session. But then Scott leaves and then dies. And like famously, Halle Berry said she wouldn't even be in this movie unless she got more screen time and she got to be the leader of the X-Men, which doesn't even happen till the end when, well, not the end, but just now Xavier offered her that position kind of out of nowhere. And
Yeah.
I mean, she makes more sense than Wolverine, obviously, but um, that feels like this passing of the torch mantle thing that we didn't really earn.
Yeah. Again, that's another one of those things where it's like it's really not a big deal just taking this movie on its own terms, but being a sequel to X1 and X2, it's like that's not set up anywhere at all. But you know, this and like again, I feel like I'm gonna say this a lot. Just like with Ellen Page and just like with Kelsey Grammer, I actually feel like given more screen time and given more stuff to do, Halle Berry is giving a pretty decent performance in this movie. It's one of those things where like I enjoy watching her far more than I did in either of the previous two, and like I feel like as much as we can complain like oh that's a diva move, like yeah okay fine, like she wanted more stuff to do, they gave her more stuff, and she's not bad. Like I can't blame her for wanting a bigger role. It's
Yeah,
just still
it
even
shows in
with
her
the bigger
performance
role
that
that
she wants
she.
to be here. Not that she was
Sorry,
ever
what's that?
like I said it, yeah, and it shows in her performance that she wants to be here. Not
Yeah.
that she's, Jennifer Lawrence or anything, but um,
It's
it,
just even with the bigger role that she has, I'm still like, this character should still be in more of this movie. And like have a more significant like narrative through line. Because like, and this is a thing that I noted when I did the retrospective like reviews of all these movies. Something I've come to learn is that Hugh Jackman just has chemistry with everyone. And so
he's
like
a
yeah, and like we'll often do things in these movies where he gets significant amounts of screen time where it's just him and someone else. And like he and Storm have like he and Halle Berry have a chemistry and they do have an interesting dynamic where it'd be like, okay, I'd watch the X-Men movie where these two are like co-leaders of a team. This guy's just busting these people's balls for no reason. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna sit on you." It's psych.
the chick with the purple hair reminds me of a cartoon that I'm sure no one has seen, or if they have seen it, they don't remember seeing it as a kid. 16 with the number, the like
Oh
kiddie
yeah,
animated show on Cartoon Network.
I was I was trying to think because like what there's probably a couple cartoons around that same time frame with characters who she could be reminiscent of. But yeah, she does look like Nikki from 16.
There's only like two people who are bothering to listen to this that know what either of us are talking about.
I like this being Magneto's introduction into this movie.
Yeah, him essentially forming the Brotherhood. 'Cause he doesn't have a Brotherhood in the previous two. He has henchmen,
Yeah,
but he doesn't have the Brotherhood of Mutants.
yeah, and it's like it's a good re-establishing character moment of like
Yeah,
there's this
people who
public
genuinely
event.
agree with his rhetoric and buy
Yeah,
into what he says.
it's like a public event where this guy is trying to get people to do what we would consider the logical humane thing, which is like to take their problems to Congress, and he comes in as like opportunity to radicalize people. I'm gonna take it. That said, like the the pure pride and like I wish I had the level of confidence of this guy who comes up to Pyro and he's like, you know who you're messing with, and he's got a fireball ready to go, and he's like, spikes, yeah. Like if he could shoot them off of himself, that would be something. But no. Okay, yeah, we kind of just glossed over it. We don't really establish at all whether this was pre-planned or if he's just here to pick up Mystique or what.
Yeah.
I never got the impression that this was like a plan.
Actually, yeah, it doesn't even make sense for it to be a plan since Mystique gets nothing out of this. She's depowered by the end of the scene and is no longer a mutant. And it's not there was some objective here to getting captured. Like they don't
Yeah,
get
I'm like,
anything out of her getting captured. So yeah, like that was now that I think about it, that suggestion I had doesn't really even make any sense.
yeah, like the implication is he's got the one whose name I'm forgetting. Is it Calypso? I don't know, but it's the mutant who has two powers. Like that does it's not even like a primary and secondary. It's just she has two powers in a way that no one else does, which is one, she's super fast, and two, she can detect other mutants and like how strong they are. And like the levels of mutation and like the levels of how potent their powers are is another thing that we didn't establish in the previous two movies that I don't have a problem with. Like it's weird that we just assume the audience knows what we're talking about, but I don't have a problem with it being here, like a class 4, class 5, or whatever.
Right.
But she can do that and she has super speed. So I guess Magneto was like, "Oh, it's cool that you can do that. Can you locate Mystique for me?" And she's
It's
like, "All right." And then,
the class thing is just so it's just weird because it's arbitrary.
yeah, if they just taken a moment to be like, "Okay, this is what this is," then all right, fine.
I don't know how you well, there's no way around it. That just has to be kind of an obligatory expository scene, but yeah.
Yeah. And this is a great scene. I considered doing this one for the video, but it was just too short.
Yeah, it's too short. It's just a moment of him like, oh wow, if I was normal.
Yeah, and it's this moment of like, and again, this is something that's really undercut by the prequels. It's like, this is the first time that I've seen my own hand in years, decades. And it's like, oh my God, I forgot that it was possible for me to look like this.
Or maybe it wasn't.
Yeah,
Maybe
or
it's
like at one point in my life, I might have looked like this. The score for this movie gets a surprising amount of flack, and I've never really got it.
yeah, me neither. I don't think the score is bad by any means.
It's
Um,
another one of those things that's just like it's out of step with the first two movies, and I guess that bothers people.
but I think it's also kind of a different tone than either of those first two movies.
Yeah, and like this is before we'd reused the iconic X2 theme, so it's kind of weird, but also fine that all three of these movies just have a completely different sort of musical identity.
Yeah, especially since this isn't exactly a roundabout coming full circle trilogy.
Yeah, no.
it's just the next movie in the franchise. So we don't really need the nostalgic harkening back to the first one or second one music.
Hmm. Like, man, the more I watch these movies, the more I can't help but empathize with people like Comic Book Girl 19, people who are like actually like massive
Hardcore
Scott
fans.
Summers fans. Yeah,
Yeah.
like if you're a real Scott Summers fan, then these movies just must feel
Like the
incredibly
most
insulting.
infuriating thing.
Yeah, it's like imagine you
They
watch
just
the
don't
first
get
X
this,
Men.
yeah, that
Oh,
they
sorry.
just don't get this character, like don't understand what's cool about him or don't think he's cool, and so we just gotta get him out
Yeah,
of the
and
way,
it's like
make space for Wolverine because he's the cool one everyone's there for.
because he gets it the worst. Like Storm and Jean and Kitty and Beast and all of them and like Iceman, they're not the comics, but they get stuff to do, and you can see someone watching these movies being like, okay, this person is cool. Scott, like, he doesn't get overly shafted in the first movie compared to the rest of the team. That's when where it's just like, okay, I guess we were setting up the X-Men team and he'll have stuff to do in the sequel with Jean and Storm and everything. Nope. Jean and Storm and the rest of the team that we established in the first movie get stuff to do in the sequel. Scott literally gets taken off the playing field. And then in this one, it's like, okay, maybe finally, well, we've run out of excuses to not give him things to do. He's gone in literally 2 scenes.
Yeah.
Like, he really does get it the worst.
And then not as badly, but we kind of keep doing it in the McAvoy and Fassbender era because we finally get a Cyclops, and like we don't make him compelling enough for anyone to be a fan of that iteration either. I don't think.
Which is a shame because, once again, it's not bad casting.
It's also kind of weird to me that Ratner chooses to pick a wholly original aesthetic for Phoenix. Because we know that like even in the previous movie, there like Jean had this red aura when she was using the Phoenix, and also like first of all, the Phoenix thing is that whole thing is completely retroactive because in X2, we're not given the impression that using it is affecting her mind anyway. It puts a stress on her physically, but we don't get any sense of the multiple personality thing.
Yeah, like the fact that it's multiple personalities is, once again, one of those things where it's just like, if you were remotely invested in the first 2 movies, this just comes completely out of nowhere. And even me, someone who's like not overly invested in either of those, it's just it's a weird choice. Like, it's definitely symptomatic of this is 2006. Audiences are not ready for the reveal that this like other conscious force is inhabiting this character's body. Let's just make it something more easily consumable or like easily digestible, which is okay, split personality, fine, whatever. But like the fact that it's not alluded to at all in the previous 2 movies, like you wouldn't have assumed anything was wrong with Jean except that like she's too powerful. It's such a weird choice.
Yeah, and then she this isn't exactly the comics. It's more like she has really deadly energy blasts, but here she just disintegrates everything.
Yeah. Which I mean, again, in a vacuum on its own, I don't mind that effect, and I think
I don't
that's
either,
a yeah.
and I found it really horrifying when I first saw this movie.
Mm-hmm. Like when we get to the scene where she kills Professor X, and you see bits of him coming off of himself, and it's like, oh god. Yeah, there's so many things like this in this movie where it's like I want to be there in the writers' room where they're like, "This is what we should do story wise," because like you alluded to with the whole, there's no way to avoid the exposition of it all with the Class 5 thing, so they just don't talk about it. Here we've got a really kind of odd, out of nowhere exposition dump of like, the Phoenix is this. It's been in Gene the whole time. Trust me. It's like you gotta when you're writing that scene realize that this is weird and clunky and it doesn't feel natural. We should probably do something else.
Yeah, who knows what their thought process was. Um, it's I like the idea of finally painting Xavier as the imperfect human being that he is. Like he tries to be the ideal and the mentor and you know the moral compass that everyone should strive towards, but in his time has also made some mistakes like any human being has. And is the problem with that is Xavier himself seems to, I mean, he's not Scott. He's not Scott Summers, but he himself, the leader, well, the figurehead of the X-Men, is kind of down, if not down. I don't know if downplayed is the right word, but not in those first two movies as much as he ought to be.
The thing is, I don't even know if it's a matter of how much he's in it. It's how much time he spends away from the team.
Yeah, he's not
We
with
don't get
them,
enough scenes of all of them, him included, like
and
developing a dynamic.
we rarely, if ever, aside from that initial scene where he's talking to Eric, reiterate his ideals and show him instilling those ideals in the X-Men.
Yeah. So like I think there's a potentially interesting thing here if we let it breathe a bit more. Where like yes, obviously Logan has an emotional investment in Jean, but he's also just like you you probably shouldn't like control people like that. And that's a very Wolverine stance for him to take, where he's like, you cage the beast, sometimes it gets angry. Like, don't limit people's freedom that way. And I think if we'd given that a bit more time, that could be an actually interesting argument between the two of them. And unfortunately, we don't really get to scratch beyond that surface.
No, it kind of just ends up being a trailer fodder line.
Mm,
It is a shame.
yeah.
And Angel is one of the most wasted things in this whole movie. As
Once again, good casting.
I mean, I don't even know who this guy is, but he does not get to do anything aside from save his father at the end, and we don't even really know if that necessarily changed his father's position on mutants.
Yeah.
He just saves him, and then he's at the X Mansion, like
And like
without a word.
if he was a character, we could have something that justifies this because again, we open this movie with him cutting his wings off of himself. And now we're at this point where like I guess he's just scared of needles. Like clearly we're supposed to think he's had a change of heart, but what is it that makes him now go, "Yeah, I want to stay like this."
Yeah, that all
He's
happened off screen.
Yeah, he's like his dad is like, "This is what we both want." And he's like, "No, it's what you want." Last time we saw you, it was also what you wanted. You were mutilating yourself. And like I guess you could argue maybe he's only doing that because he knows his dad wouldn't approve, but like give this character some time so we can talk about that. His theme is really nice though.
Yeah, it's solid.
And we are just now like ending the first act, transitioning into act 2, and Mystique has been in two scenes, and just like Scott, we are going to toss her aside.
I mean, I think that's kind of the point. Um, I'm gonna have a hard time articulating why, but I feel like taking Mystique out of the picture definitely makes more sense than it does to take Scott out of the picture so early.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. The way we go about it is a problem,
Yeah, that
which
I
is like,
can't argue that.
yeah, which is a shame because once again, we've got this thing that I guess is just this movie's whole dichotomy, which is performances and actors and casting choices really good, writing decisions not so much. I think this is easily McKellen's best performance as Magneto, and yet it's probably his worst characterization across these three movies. Like, in no reality do I buy that the Magneto of movies one and two would look at Mystique having been
Abandon her.
victimized like that and be like, ah, well, I guess we just gotta get out of here.
You saved me. Now I'm leaving you.
Yeah, and like, who was it? Ah, man, I wish I could remember who made this point, but like, the in character thing for Magneto to do would be to like make a martyr out of her and be like, see, everyone, this is what they want for all of us.
Which I thought was the idea. Wait, no, he actually does say that later to Wolverine at the end. This is what they want for all of us.
He says that to the Phoenix, and it's like it's about himself. Like,
Oh
why
yeah,
not? Yeah,
yeah, the
like why
comic.
not get her out in front of a crowd of mutants and be like, she used to be something so beautiful and unique, and they made her, like, they brought her down to their level. That's what they want to do to all of you. Also, imagine being a Juggernaut fan, and one of his first lines is, "Can you let me out? I need to pee."
I mean, yeah, that's Juggernaut is infamously just. I mean, he's a walking meme character in this movie.
We literally reference an internet meme. Which, having no clue that that meme existed before seeing this movie, I was just like, huh, weird. I mean, I thought the line was funny, but still. Yet, see, this is just, it's so callous. It feels so unlike what their relationship was before. It's like, it's real weird. And like, Magneto's character is going to continue to be weird throughout this movie, where there will be bits that I like, but for the most part, he feels like a new character.
I definitely get that. I wish we were having more of a discussion about the Cure, on the X-Men side. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
like,
one
it's not a
scene that we
character. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the one scene that we get of it is, I think, really good, and like we established that everyone sort of feels a little bit differently about it. Like I think the moment where Rogue comes in is like, is it true that they can cure us? And Storm is like, no, because there's nothing to cure. Like that's these characters all feel very different ways about this, and that should be more of the movie.
It should. Yeah, that's what I mean. Because that's the big token scene where we have at least a scene where people are voicing their opinions on it. But that I need more of that in this movie.
Yeah, and like that would be the benefit of doing a team movie where you can get to have that kind of discussion where it's not in the way that so many superhero movies often end up being a debate between just two ideologies, one protagonist, one antagonist, having a bunch of characters who are faced with an issue and everyone feels kind of different about it. It's more inherently interesting. I would say Jean's not acting like herself, but we don't know her well enough to know what that looks like.
Exactly. Because I was about to say, like, you could say that. I don't know if we have enough to go on.
And like I think maybe this is interesting. Again, it's weird how we like go about it. We're like, okay, the Phoenix is its own personality, and that personality is like instinctual and it's like going on all these base desires. So where Jean is like the good girl, the Phoenix is like horny for Wolverine and like she goes for that sort of thing. But then pretty quickly after this, we'll just stop characterizing the Phoenix at all and she'll just kind of be a blank slate.
Yeah, it would just be different than normal Jean, whatever that even means.
Yeah, like there's this scene and then there's the bit in the house where she's actually responding to Xavier and being like, you wanna control me, you wanna put me back in a cage. It's like, no. Like there is something to that of actually making the Phoenix like this character with thoughts and opinions, and they just happen to be really, really dangerous. But instead, too often we just like they just stand there, they don't say anything, they don't really emote all that much. They just kind of they are just their powers, basically. And again, if we did more moments like this, where like actual Jean comes out in like these rare moments of lucidity, that would be interesting. But it only happens here and at the very end.
Um, I do remember hearing stories from friends whenever this movie came up, like in class back in high school. Um, Actually, there was one time where I got to throw this movie on in one of my classes. Our teacher was really that cool, and like I would have us like I would suggest us draw a certain character, and then we draw it, and then we got to watch the movie or whatever show or whatever it was based on. I just had to bring in my DVD. So we sat through this movie, and I remember like everyone getting like really hot and bothered uh when she scratches Wolverine and you see the scratches heal.
Yee, kinky.
That line has become more and more unintentionally funny to me every time I've gone back to
On
this. Like Logan's like we can make it better, we can fix it. And she's like, I don't want to fix
the state of this franchise in a nutshell.
it. Someone's telling Brett Ratner in the scriptwriting process, this isn't good, we can fix it. And he's like, I don't want.
But yeah, no, I feel like there's a version of this movie that exists where again, it's like it's not such a dumb action movie, and like I'm fine with it as a dumb action movie, but there's the kernels of a real actual story in here where we have characters talk about things and like they talk about the cure, and Jean and the Phoenix get to talk a bit more and be more actual characters and not just a walking excuse for some cool visual effects. It's like it's almost there, but we just don't take advantage of any of it. And like the fact that Jean's immediate response is like, "Oh no, this is bad. You should end me now." Like multiple times she's like, "Kill me, kill me, kill me." And that's ultimately what it's going to have to come down to in the end. And it's like there's something actually like effective and tragic about that.
I One of the biggest disconcerting things for me is killing killing Xavier the way we do here, because Logan, he and Logan don't get to resolve their argument over how he handled Jean, and more so than that, like this. this guy's essentially been the guru for the team, but we haven't, again, ever really seen him instill or reiterate the values that he holds with the team. And he's separated from them so often in these movies.
Yeah. And this is another thing of like part of what makes this a dumb fun action movie that I don't mind just sitting down and watching is also what works against it, which is the pacing, which is like this is the halfway point of the movie. It doesn't feel like that because it feels like hardly anything of substance has happened.
Very true.
It feels way too early to like take him out of the picture like this. But yeah, everything here, like this whole sequence, I actually really like. Like, yeah, like there's the way that she says, like, so you want to control me? Like, there's glimmers of an actual, like, interesting performance and like a character to this persona of the Phoenix that I want to see more of, and it just stops existing outside of this scene.
This is, I mean, even though I don't like the choice of killing Xavier, this is one of, if not the best scene in the movie.
Yeah. And like it's especially making me think like shame on all three of these movies for handling Jean the way that we do because when we give her even like a scrap of actual character to perform, Famke Jensen does a really good job.
Oh, yeah. She's always been a great actress. We just barely used her. Like, on paper, she's a blank of wood kind of in those first movies.
I man, like he's like make sure that they don't come into the house, throws him into the house.
The porcupine guy whipping out his spikes like he's so tough.
I swear I want this guy's level of confidence. I want to have a power that lame and be like, yeah, I'm top dog.
That was a really cool shot.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's a neat bit of filmmaking. Juggernaut grabbing Wolverine, throwing him in the ceiling, and falling out the other part of the ceiling, and then getting kicked out of the house.
Yeah, I like that. Wolverine he stays going out those windows. He gets thrown into one of the windows, he gets kicked out of the window, he'll get blown out of the window at the end of the scene.
And a deleted bit is an extended part of this scene before they're even in the house. Wolverine runs up to him, stabs him in the arm, and then like they just lock eyes, and then Juggernaut just smacks him down to the ground. Like Wolverine's expecting like a reaction, and they just look at each other. They just smack.
Tell me it made like a metal clanging sound effect.
It did not, but I wish that bit was in the theatrical version of the movie.
Ah.
I might just find a good quality um, section of that scene and put it in the movie so I can have that version to watch.
Hmm. And like again, this is like on the list of things that in this moment seems like it could build to something really interesting and we don't quite go anywhere with it, which is that here you can see Eric freaking out as like, oh god, this is a mistake. Like Charles is about to die and I helped egg this on.
Yeah,
And past a
another
certain
thing
moment,
the scene is they both have very different conflicting approaches of how to engage Jean.
yeah. And like he is actively trying to undermine Charles. It's not just that they have different approaches, like they have opposed goals, which is each one of them wants Jean on their side. And too late, Eric realizes, oh man, like Charles is going to die and it's gonna be my fault. And if we played that guilt up more through the rest of the movie, that could have been really powerful. But it kind of just goes away after a scene.
I wouldn't necessarily goes away because Wolverine puts him in his place about it later. He's like, you just stood there and let him die, and
That's true.
yeah, you can see the look on Magneto's face that that really got under his skin because he knows it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, like immediately you can see the like we've got to go, but like, oh God, what did I do? And this is really the last time in this movie that Famke Jensen will have gotten to act.
Yeah, because she's a prop for the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, these two are so good.
Yeah, honestly. Like, I want the movie that's like an actual X-Men movie led by the two of them.
I'm grieving right along with them in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I just you needed to earn this, and the first
Yeah.
two movies do not buy you this.
And especially since, again, why this should have actually been a team movie, we're gonna get like input here, like shots and emotional stuff of like Rogue and Bobby and Kitty. It's like those three collectively got a scene like 10, 15 minutes into the movie, and then we have not seen them since practically.
Well, we see Kitty interacting with Charles, but like we just met her.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's like a brief classroom scene. And that's like the exception.
and I'm not saying necessarily, but I mean, yeah, I'll go this far. It needs to be not necessarily that it has to happen at the end like it does in Endgame, but it's got to be like Tony Stark in Endgame. Like that's how you want to handle Professor Xavier's death. It's got to, you have to earn that.
I think because they made it the midpoint. I think, and again, this is dependent on the rest of the movie having them all in scenes together and building the dynamic and giving him things to do with the other characters. I think you only have to move his death forward like 10, 15, 20 minutes from now. So, like, instead of the middle of the movie, it's end of Act 2. I think
And
that works fine.
that's what propels them to try and stop Jean and the Brotherhood in Act 3.
Yeah. Like, I think that's fine. But again, it's dependent on the rest of the movie before that really earning that.
And I think, because again, this is just the third movie, I think you have to fundamentally change what those first two movies are. Because
Yeah.
even Xavier isn't interacting with the actual X-Men enough.
Yeah. It's like all of these movies, like particularly these first three, are kind of working on this weird thing of like they assume the audience remembers things a certain way and like they play more to the audience's memories of the previous movie than actually building on what happened. And this one especially.
Yeah, because if you watch these back to back in a row, it's gonna play as just as hollow as it actually is.
Yeah, like this one in particular might as well be a different continuity.
It One thing I don't like is the awkward love triangle thing, because these two
Yeah,
definitely have chemistry, but
yeah, because the thing is, the way that we're playing it is like Bobby's just trying to be a good guy and a nice friend, and the two of them can't really help it that they're like drawn to each other. And like they like you said, they just have a natural chemistry and they're not like he's not trying to cheat on Rogue. So like at least I don't think less of him.
yeah, and
But
nothing happened there. They literally
yeah,
just ice skated together. She sees this, but gets jealous and leaves.
Well, like the thing is, I'm not taking it that way. I'm not taking it as her like getting jealous or holding it against them. She's like, at most, I think she's thinking,
I
I
wish I
might
could.
lose. Yeah, like at most, I think she's thinking, I might lose Bobby because I can't be intimate like that. Like she's not blaming either of them necessarily, but she's like, I want the cure so I can touch my boyfriend. I want to be able to have that kind of moment without thinking, oh my gosh, am I gonna accidentally suck the life out of him? And so that's why she's leaving. Like she plans to come back, but like be able to touch people.
This is another great moment, and these two really should have. Because like,
This is their first scene together in this movie.
if you don't count the training scene, but they don't have like an actual exchange there, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because they're the first movie pretends like they're the heart and soul of it, but they're really not. And then they're barely together in the second movie, and then like that's a really tender and nice moment. But like there should have been like Rogue and Logan should have been like the relationship that anchors these movies.
Yeah. And then you could do sort of what I ended up doing, like with that scene, and making it more explicit, which is Logan and Rogue is the more healthy counterpoint to Xavier and Jean. Where again, and like this even works in it's in very different ways, granted, but Jean and Rogue are both people whose powers are very dangerous, and it's difficult, particularly with the Phoenix thing, to see the upside of letting them just do whatever they want. But Xavier is the father figure who puts Jean's like problems in a cage and tries to control her, and Logan is the father figure who's like, listen, I trust you. Like I know that you're a good person and like you can be trusted to do your own thing. If you think this is what's right, I'm gonna let you do it. And like there's something there. There's a thematic like through line there in the version of this movie that gives Jean and Charles and that relationship and everything more breathing room. Like this movie has so many little kernels of potential greatness in it, and it's like it's actively choosing to just be dumb fun action movie instead of that.
And I think
And
there
like
are places like that previous scene where it's pretending that it's actually delivering some pathos and some nuance. But like, what I really don't like about that scene is she says nothing to him. Like, that's not an
yeah,
interaction. That is talking at a piece of wood.
yeah. And like the Phoenix of just a couple of scenes ago, I feel like would have had a response.
Yeah, she would have said something.
And it's also easy to forget that Pyro's even in this movie.
No, I never forget that because we have a big, um, like Sasuke kind of Naruto esque
Yeah,
with
that's
the
true.
knife
The bits
man.
with the two like bits with him and Bobby are like, yeah, that's true. I suppose I should rephrase. It's not easy to forget that he's in this movie, but like I don't know how to say it. It's like it's again, he's another thing that's there. It's like, okay, we set you up in the previous movie, and I figured that he would get more stuff to do before those Bobby bits, except just walk around like tied to Magneto's side. Like, why wasn't he in the previous action sequence? Instead of like dumb Spike guy, bring Pyro along and have Storm and Pyro fight. That would be fun.
Yeah, because well, I mean, what's the Spike guy doing in that fight? Nothing. Storm just zapped him away.
Like, there's just so many pieces in this movie that could do something interesting, and they just don't. And like I'll say this much, it really makes me appreciate more the movies that we have now and like over the past couple of years, to where it's like, being invested in these franchises as we are, there's a lot of online discourse of like, these movies aren't actually movies. They don't actually tell worthwhile stories. They're just like corporate action schlock. Like, no. This, for as much as I like parts of it, this movie is corporate action schlock. Like, even some of the lesser MCU movies and even like the DCEU movies that I don't care for, they're trying to do something. They're trying to take characters and tell stories with like setup and payoff that goes somewhere and has something to say and sticks to its guns. And this movie just, it has kernels and that's it.
I should be more invested in this scene, especially since both of them are playing it so well. Um, but she's like, she chose her side. Now we have to choose ours. This isn't okay. So what doesn't work about this is like the Phoenix is not like obviously it's sentient, but it's not really consistent. It's just kind of scatterbrained and does whatever in the moment. It doesn't even say anything to Magneto, and he has his whole speech about superiority and all that back at the camp. So
Yeah.
I don't really feel like the Phoenix is. I mean, it's not even like the Joker, where like Joker clearly has an agenda that he hides behind, just pure chaos when it's really not. Um, the Phoenix is not that. The Phoenix is kind of just doing whatever.
Yeah, and like again, I feel like the base for something better is there, where again, it's not like the Joker in that they just want like chaos for chaos's sake, or even to prove a point. I think if you follow from what we set up with Phoenix, like the way that she's being performed and the stuff that she's doing in like her first couple of scenes, she should just be like, look, I don't care about anyone but me. I'm out to have a good time. If I want to blow stuff up, I'm going to do it. If I want to have sex with someone, I'm just going to do it. Again, like creature of pure instinct. And the setup is there. And like I'd like it if we like had this thing where we pull the rug out from under Magneto to be like, "Oh, you thought you were going to use the Phoenix as a tool for your cause. She's invested in nothing but just pure in the moment pleasure." And like there's something there, but again, we don't have that character for more than two scenes. And like you were talking about with this with the scene we just had with Wolverine and Storm, I like the notion that Storm was so attached to Xavier that like him dying is like, oh well, the Phoenix Jean whatever killed Xavier, she is the enemy now. Like I don't care, whatever. Like it's we're in a war now. It's kill or be killed. Like there's something there, the fact that she has that extreme reaction to that loss. And it's just that scene, unfortunately.
That's funny. This whole thing is funny and very comic book because that's that's not a thing. You
Yeah.
can't make plastic guns that'll actually have lethal rounds in them with absolutely no metal whatsoever.
Although are they not going for like not lethal because they're putting cure cartridges in there?
That's true. But like how are so I'm assuming there's still, needle bits in there. What is that made of if not metal?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Come on. like like you give a movie its premise. I just think it's funny.
Yeah, and like the more I'm watching this, I still subscribe to the idea that the right person could take both of these plot lines and make them work in one movie together. But the more I'm watching this, the more I really am like, The Cure really is something that deserves its own movie, like
Yeah,
its own full screen time just for that story, because we just get this very brief bit of Rogue going in to take the Cure, and like there are people protesting outside, and like that's loaded. That's like abortion clinic level imagery, and we should have a movie that's about that, and we should give this character the chance to like really feel that and let the audience feel that. And this is a major life changing decision that she's making, and we don't even get to see it happen. It's such a missed opportunity and such a mistake to not be in the scene with Rogue as she actually takes the Cure.
yeah. This is a pretty fun action scene, though.
Yeah. Again, it's like I can't hate this movie. For all I've done nothing but complain about it, I can't really dislike it because it's chosen to be a dumb action thing, and the dumb action is fun.
Yeah, this is Fast and Furious type stuff right here.
Yeah, it's just such a shame that it could be more than that, and at every turn, seemingly, it rejects that.
That's laugh out loud funny to me that they both discharge at each other. One wants to deal so he gets to live.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, like I feel like my main thing with this movie is that I do not hate the movie that it is. I just keep being reminded of the movie that it could be, and I want to watch that one so much more. Bro, don't look at her when you say that. Like again, this should be the setup for a moment in Act 3 where the Phoenix is like, "Oh, you thought you were going to use me. You were not subtle about it. I don't care. I'm just going to do what I want." But no, she is a tool. She is just a weapon ostensibly.
And she gives Logan this look like she cares about him, like actual genes coming through.
Yeah,
But then
but
he
we
just
don't
goes up
actually
and nothing is said, and then
it didn't happen.
yeah, Magneto doesn't even like Magneto comes in before she can even say anything. It's just we don't even have a real take on Phoenix, which is why we keep her monosyllabic.
Yeah. And it's a shame because again we almost do. Again, great opportunity for her to have some input.
Oh, I have
It's
nothing to
like,
say.
yeah, it's like, do you think I'm keeping here against her will? She's here because she wants to be. Like, okay, let her voice that. Like, let this character be like, yeah, I only do what I want. Like, if I did not want to be here, I would just murder this person.
Jeez.
I forgot how high up he was. Jeez.
That I didn't forget. The memory of him like violently smacking on the ground, covered in scratches and blood, sticks with me.
Ooh. And now the only reason that we bought in Jamie Madrox.
He was dying to say that line.
Yeah, and like, I don't like it. Like, it's such a shame that like this is what Mystique's been reduced to. Like she in comparatively little screen time, like she doesn't get a ton of screen time compared to anyone else. In like just self-contained sequences of a couple minutes, she's one of the most memorable things about the first two movies. And then in this one, it's just like, well, she's here. She gave us some intel. Bye bye.
And I kind of don't love that we're not given any indication that she's still with, because it honestly just feels like Magneto just abandons her post this scene, and then we find out that it's fake out.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's what happened. He abandons her, and then I guess
No, but
because
she still helps him with this like ruse.
is
That's
that the impression that you got?
yeah.
I I assumed that she had no idea this was happening.
I don't buy that.
I don't know. Like the impression that I always got was that she's just so mad at being ditched that she actually tried to sell him out, and Magneto just like saw it coming.
I honestly don't think that tracks because we don't get a scene with her, and from what we've experienced with Mystique, and maybe I'm bringing my knowledge of comics and other iterations of the franchise, to it. But she's loyal to Magneto. Like she doesn't actually turn on him, and since it is a fake out, it makes me think that she was in on it.
Yeah, it's just this movie's been so iffy with characterization all around, and she has been in so little of it. I can't be sure. Like all you would need is like a 5 second thing of like they get fooled and cut back to her like sitting in the room and like she gives a little smirk. And that would be
Yeah,
all you need to be like, okay, she knew what she was doing. But for all these years, I never had like any reason to assume like, oh no, she's just real mad at Magneto because she got ditched.
but somehow only found out about this decoy location.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also that raises a question because like if we confirm that it was all just a ruse on her part, also that would be like okay, she and Magneto are still communicating, I guess, because otherwise, how does she know that? Oh no, no, this is probably like a regular place that they regularly convene, possibly. I don't know. Also, speaking of people I actually did forget were in the movie, not exaggerating this time, Colossus is here.
I don't forget about Colossus either, because I don't know, man. I guess I have a better memory than you.
No, I mean I remember him in the third act, but like before that, he's not been in this movie at all. He was in the Sentinel fight. He was in the fight with the Sentinels, and then he has one scene where he's walking down a hallway, and that was his grand total of screen time in this movie over an hour and 12 minutes.
How do we get a better Colossus in a Deadpool movie?
I, I mean, I guess the answer to that is just set the bar really low.
And not even just let him be a character, which they let him be in that, but he's got the Russian accent. He's actually the comic book size because he's
We can,
cartoonishly big in X-Men.
yeah, we can like assign him character traits.
Like he has this look. He's just looking. He just has a reaction shot here, and I'm like, I'm not even engaged. This is barely even a character. He's just a prop in these movies.
Yeah, like, and it's so weird because Bobby and Kitty haven't got a ton to do, but they at least have scenes of them being human beings. Or what did Colossus do? He walked down a hallway and said, "Oh yeah, I think I saw Rogue head out of here at some
Yeah,
point."
what merits a random Colossus reaction shot in this film?
Yeah, what merits him being on this plane with the rest of them? The rest of them are actual characters.
Well, he's muscle, and they need everybody they can get to fight the Brotherhood.
I guess that's it.
Yeah, because this is a very small, very small X-Men team. And like we always, I want to say we at least always have like a good um, 7 or 8 people on the team. Like post original days, obviously, when
Yeah.
when the was first started, but like you think of the X-Men, you think of at least a good 7, 8 characters. And that's the
I'm
problem with
just,
X-Men. There's a lot of characters to juggle and like get stuff to do, which is why X-Men has always been better suited to serialized storytelling.
yeah. And honestly,
And now
this
that we
might
live in a day
sound.
and age where you can pull off these effects on television, I wish proper MCU was just giving them a big budget show. Just
I
give
mean,
them
who knows? That might
budget.
happen. We
No,
might get.
we know they're still going the movie route. Like, let's be honest, they're not going to do X-Men as a show. They'll give them movies.
I I cannot be sure that you're right about that. I think the answer to that depends on how the next couple of years go.
Well, I mean that those things don't have anything to do with each other. Kevin Feige talked about his 5-year plan, and that it just doesn't involve the X-Men. He'll get to them after the 5-year plan.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is if over the course of that 5 years, like the series become ridiculous smash hits, and like I think there's a genuine possibility that this time 3 or 4 years from now we're gonna hear an announcement the X-Men are going to series.
No chance. I do not believe that for a second.
We'll see. I don't know. Watch what happens is that it's just both. You get X-Men movies and X-Men series.
That I mean, if they can pull that off, I'm all for it. More the merrier. That's hilarious.
I mean, it is actually cool, but it is also hilarious.
Yeah, and it's the most powerful thing we have seen him do up to this point.
Mm.
Honestly, kind of on film, because he moves a stadium in Days of Future Past, and that's pretty badass. But this bridge and just the size of it, he never moves anything this big again.
I remember when I was a kid, until like a couple of years ago, I always thought that Magneto was the one who like closed the lock on that car door. I always thought that was like his cheeky little way of like being, yes, little humans, stay inside, don't mind us. But
But
no, it's just the mom
no,
closing the lock.
yeah, her arm moves towards the lock, like she's clearly the one that locks it.
Yeah. I'm just imagining, and like I'm imagining when I saw that they got a new outfit for the Phoenix, I was like, do you think on the way here, like all of them, like these hundreds and hundreds of mutants, just like stopped at a store to be like, hey, can we get her some new threads?
No, because that's something you have custom made. You're not getting that out of a store.
True. I guess one of their mutant abilities might just be like perfect tailor.
Or they're just friends with one.
And this is
On
the other big thing.
that's so Magneto.
Yeah, I dislike that line. That's the other big thing that I hate is like I don't I get it. Like Magneto in this franchise is a guy who like has a hierarchy and definitely thinks of himself as the guy in charge, but that he looks at all of these mutants that he's conscripted into his ideology, sees them get turned into humans, and he's like, that's why the pawns go first. Like, no, that should not be his reaction to seeing this happen.
Yeah, Magneto, he's supposed to be um the was it the Malcolm X to Charles? Wait, no. Uh,
Yeah, you got it.
okay, yeah, the Malcolm X to Charles is Martin Luther King, and
Yeah, like
he's not supposed to see his own people as expendable. It makes
yeah,
sense for Magneto, considering what he was ready to do to Rogue in the first movie, just because he didn't want to risk his own bodily integrity. But yeah,
yeah. Like he I get it. It's a cool villain line, but he's the kind of character who he should look at all of these people who are like him being violated essentially and having part of their identity forcibly removed from them. And he should be getting angry. He should like this should be a moment for him of like, my God, I already thought little of humans, but they're just monsters for doing this. And like that his line is like, oh, I just dismiss it because I'm the bad guy. Like, I hate it. Also, wait a minute. How did how did you guys fall through the ground and then jump back up? What did you do?
I'll
Like
let them.
Like Bobby and Kitty fall through the ground and they come back up, and it's like, how?
That's not the Wilhelm scream, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Like, I mean, honestly, it's close enough.
Yeah, but I like that it's different, but it evokes the same reaction. It's really funny.
Yeah.
I don't know what Storm was doing to give the speedster girl that opening, but
Yeah, like honestly, Storm, you're taking your sweet time.
yeah, it's a lot of showboating unnecessarily.
Nice.
I don't even get the impression that this incarnation of Juggernaut has anything to do with Xavier.
Yeah, definitely not. He
Yeah, he
seems
would have had a reaction to Xavier being blown up at the house.
yeah. And like I'll say, another thing that's like a cool fun action thing is like I think having like the facing Kitty off with Juggernaut is
Oh
like
wait, here comes the line.
yep. Like I think making it a race between these two is a fun idea.
It is.
I really like his delivery. I like that one.
Yeah, it's become a long running meme that is still prominent to this day. And I mean, it's pretty simple, but it's one of the more inspired like action scenarios in the film.
Yeah. Oh, that's your power. Okay, cool. It took us a hot minute to get there.
This is really sadistic and twisted.
Yeah.
Like to let her think you're gonna let her live and then just skewer her like this.
Yeah. Like real oof. That's just monstrous.
So the cure presents a very interesting, obvious real world parallel, which is like, well, obviously X Men's always been an allegory for racism and dealing with racism, and it's like, so if you could take a cure, well, not a cure, but like like if there was a thing that could make you a white person, and just be like the white people and remove the thing that causes you so much discrimination and resentment, would you do that?
Yeah. Like if you could take something to make you not other. And like some people would, and some people I think would feel justified in wanting that to be an option. And again, like that's a very the real thing that makes the cure something that maybe shouldn't be in this movie isn't that it's not like a pacing thing, it's not a plot thing, it's just it's such a loaded idea
It is.
to not
That really should be its own movie.
yeah. It deserves its chance to be taken seriously and to have all of the facets of it discussed. And like the very brief moments of that we get are really interesting, but there's just such brief snippets. And like imagine how the kid feels, because if that was its own movie we could get scenes with that kid and like how does it feel being a person who is a mutant, who is a member of the other, who is having your ability be used to take that away from other people voluntarily or otherwise? Like, how does this kid feel about all this?
Yeah, I wonder, because you gotta know that like if people, I mean, obviously the Brotherhood found out that the cure is coming from like another person, um,
Mm-hmm.
but if people don't know how the cure is being manufactured, it's like as an idea, um, it's obviously a 50-50 thing. Some people are gonna want that, and some people like take pride and cherish their individuality and like who and what they are.
Yeah. And like, I could imagine if he ever found out that like they put it in a gun, that kid feeling really guilty.
Yeah, because he also comes the like the hot commodity either way. Like, there's gonna be people that want him dead, and there's gonna be people that want to protect him and make sure the cure can be a long-lasting thing.
Mm.
But yeah, that kid and his role in the story kind of reminds me of the guy who can see the future in Civil War II, that comic. It's not very good, but it's just there's a similar scenario there. Or it's like he can see the future, or at least a probability of the future, kind of. So it's like, should we act based on things that haven't even happened yet, or should we ignore that entirely and just move forward as we would?
Yeah. And like
Which is
this whole thing, we got the payoff to the setup and payoff you mentioned earlier with the we work as a team. I think this could work. Like this scene as it's played now could really work well in a movie where Logan is maybe still doing his whole lone wolf act, and everyone else is actually getting like team scenes.
I mean, but that's
That
not
would,
what we did. So
yeah, like that would be the good way to make that like the actual end to a character arc. But here, like there was no team until this climax.
yeah, this is the big ex-friend versus ex-friend fight that's
Yeah.
over really quick, and like it just plays as laughably funny.
And it's again, it's a thing where like this is another one of those things where doesn't really work great as a sequel to the last movie, and like the implication that stuff happened off screen that it would have been nice to see. Like again, we just got done watching the last movie and they were still friends the last time they interacted in that movie. There was like no bad blood between them when X2 ended. So
I mean, there was kind of a differencing of opinion of like, you always do what you're told, and then he leaves. But like, yeah, there's not this like straight up animosity and hatred. At the same time, it's kind of, I need to get the sense that they're best friends, and then there needs to be something major that tears them apart for that to really, because with Naruto and Sasuke, it's Sasuke's mission of avenging his family and killing his brother and doing whatever it takes to make that happen. That gets in the way of his relationship with Naruto, and Sakura and anyone else that, you know, gets close to him.
Yeah. And this is like,
But we don't even know how Jean or the Phoenix feels about the cure because it hasn't said anything since it killed Charles.
and like the silent like reaction shots that we're getting are not giving us a lot to work with.
No. Ah, boy.
Yeah, and like really, this is a moment that could land better because with what we've seen up to this point, I'm not convinced that Logan actually could have talked her down anyway.
I think. I mean, there's certainly a chance before those idiot soldiers provoke her with their guns. Um, I mean, yeah, it's hard to say because again, the Phoenix slash Jean doesn't say anything after she kills Charles. But I think there's certainly a strong possibility he's able to talk her down,
Hmm.
just based off the little we have.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more you're right. Like I already agreed with this, but the more and more you're right about this should have been a series to where it's like entire character relationships and subplots that are just like 5 minutes total screen time across any of these movies
You just don't
feel like
have to do it.
they feel like they deserve entire movies worth of stuff to have happen between them.
Yeah, like you do it like Harry Potter. You either do it like Harry Potter or you do X-Men as a show. And now we're at a
Yeah,
place with technology where you can nail the effects and you can do the effects on a TV budget. Like that's not because that was a big thing that was holding us back for like a good half of our generation was the
yeah,
budgetary thing. But then Flash came along. Um, I mean, obviously they don't need to do the same kinds of effects, but you got Daredevil, and then
hmm
like there's a bunch of shows now that have done movie level quality stuff on TV. Stranger Things. I could go on and
yeah.
on.
Like it doesn't even have to look like this. It just has to look legit, and we've gotten there.
Yeah, we've gotten there. So that's not holding us back. We can do X-Men on TV. I just don't think we will because
Ugh.
again, they number one, they know that everyone's expecting more movies, and there's more money in it for the studio at large by doing it as movies. I think story wise, you're not going to get better than doing it as a TV show.
Yeah,
But I
because
think
like
it's
the thing is,
that the MCU X-Men iteration will be more films. Maybe they'll have a better handle on it, and since MCU is more serialized anyway, they'll be able to they'll be able to handle the characters better. I mean, granted, there are things that I don't like about the Avengers movies and things they kind of have to sidestep because there are just so many characters, like Black Widow's relationship with Hulk in Age of Ultron, and that just kind of being like sidestepped and made into a little joke in Infinity War, that kind of thing. Um,
yeah, and that kind of like overlaps with that things like that feeling kind of reactionary to like, oh, people didn't respond all that great to that in
that
that
was
movie, so
a big
let's just kind of
reaction, yeah, because there are people like you that buy into that, and I mean I have a more of like a nuance, more like mixed opinion, but there are definitely people who just straight up hated that and didn't like it.
yeah, and like I think the issue that granted the MCU movies do have a little bit, but it feels significantly less like cumbersome than it does with these movies, and not even just this trilogy. I think all of these movies is like all we've been talking about. It feels like there's at least a whole movie's worth of material between this and X2, and it's gonna keep feeling that way And I don't have that with the MCU as much. Where like I genuinely feel like there's a whole story that we missed that would have made a lot of this more impactful. And it's these movies are going to keep having that problem where even between the good ones, it's like, oh man, a lot went down that I would have liked to see or could have been its own movie.
I don't even feel like we're missing things in between X2 and this. I feel like this is not there's not enough happening in this. Like this is not long enough to justify um killing Xavier or just we don't have enough time to really delve into the meat of the character because as you and I both said, like that's a loaded, thing to do for a film, for X-Men film. And honestly, that needs to I think you need better movies previous to this anyway. I think you need and granted, I really like X2, but you need better movies if your third movie is going to be this cure and you're gonna take out Xavier. Like there's just that needs to be like in game length. Like you're not gonna really accomplish what you're doing, at least what they're trying to do with the screen time they have.
Yeah, particularly with just how much of our issue has stemmed from how big this cast is. And if everyone is going to get their due justice and like actually have character work done with them, then we need more time. We need to use the time we have more wisely. Yeah.
And I still think it should be you, you should do it as a show. You got the time in a show to handle a big cast.
Yeah. And if you don't have a show, if you are stuck with the movie, then what you got to do is pick and choose as to who you're going to focus on. And like we've chosen Wolverine clearly.
And you got to alternate. And I don't know if they'll do this. I doubt they will because obviously everyone's still attached to Hugh Jackman. We don't have the replacement yet, but we will eventually get another Wolverine, and you're not going to be able to do it again because no matter how good the next guy is, he'll always be compared to Hugh Jackman, and everyone's stance will be he'll never be as good as Hugh Jackman, no matter how good he actually is. So you lean into trying to capitalize on just that character again. I don't have an issue with the MCU using him. I think he should be there, but you cannot. It can't be
It
the
can't be
Wolverine.
the Wolverine and the X-Men show again.
Yeah, you can't do that. That is doomed to fail.
Yeah.
And this is like the Superman dead in BVS, but like in like the dirt rising up off his coffin thing that I can't stand.
Well, this is debatably worse than that because that's just one character. This is like the implication here is all right. If the cure was temporary,
It just wears
then
off. And why does it even matter?
yeah, then really the only things of significance that happened in this movie are all of the Phoenix stuff. Like this more than anything is like it feels like they made that scene just to spite us. To be like, okay, we decided to make a Phoenix movie and a Cure movie, and we made them the same film so that neither side would get enough proper time. And then it turns out that all of the Cure stuff is just incidental because it's not permanent anyway.
Like there might as well be like a message scene of like Brett Ratner coming out and being like, "I hope you didn't care because we sure didn't."
Yeah, like it's really bothering me now in a way that it never did before, where like this means that Rogue's choice is just completely meaningless. Like the little that we gave Rogue to do in this movie means nothing.
And if I'm not mistaken, we put Charles Xavier in another body in a post-credit scene, some weirdness. And I
I
want to
you know
put that out of some comic storyline because I know Uh, I know that we've done stuff with Xavier being in different people's bodies. I know that his body in the current run is not his own. Like it is, but it isn't. Like he had like a clone body, or like that's not his original body. Like that's how he's able to like stand, and like he's why he's not in a wheelchair.
Mm.
Which that has weirdly become, and like that run's not even that long yet, but that's weirdly become iconic with modern comics. Is Xavier no longer in a wheelchair and with that helmet?
Huh. I had not realized that.
Yeah,
But
kind of
yeah,
crazy.
this is, I mean, I guess I'm just gonna round out by just rephrasing what I've said several times already. It's just this is a dumb fun action movie, and on that level it works, but on any other level it's just it's nothing but problems. As an
Yeah,
adaptation of the comics, as a sequel to the first two movies, as a story about either of the premises that it chooses to work with.
what's weird about a lot of dumb action movies is there are still scenes where they obviously want you to care and be emotionally invested in what's going on. Um, and as obnoxiously ridiculous and over the top as they are, that aspect to the Fast and Furious movie still works. Like, I'm still invested in those characters, even though I know it's a live action cartoon and none of the characters are in any real danger. Um, but like here, like when Xavier dies, like I'm only even emotionally hit by that because like I like the actor, the performance, and the character, and obviously the actors like in the scene mourning him. But
I
like
could
story
say I
wise,
like the execution of the death itself, but it's not earned.
yeah, it's not earned. That's the main issue with it. Not and that's not to say you have to necessarily earn every death in your story. But it's Professor Xavier, like you have to earn that.
It's kind of a big deal, you guys. But yeah, like I go back and forth as to like this is for me the more enjoyable viewing experience of the three movies. And like I mentioned earlier, the pacing I think is maybe to its detriment, very fast and breezy. And like I feel like it's still that way up through the end. Like this movie kind of just passes through me. It never feels like a chore to sit through. But like, man, I wish I lived in the world where the things in this movie that were potentially interesting got to be like the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, I wish this movie was, just overall better.
Oh no! Oh god! I just realized that the only one with a worse reputation than this. Oh, well, yeah, that's not true. But like, next up is Origins.
Oh wow, that'll be fun. Um,
Eh,
that arguably has one of the best trailers for any X-Men movie. I remember watching the trailer for it while I was in my living room in middle school. I was watching the trailer for it um on demand, and I was like, "Whoa, I can't wait to see this." And then, watch the movie, and I was like, "Oh,
Welp.
oh." My first reaction to it was that wasn't bad, but what the f did they do to Deadpool?
Ah, see, man, and like, this will probably come up again since this movie is literally over. I see that movie before I know who Deadpool is.
Oh, so you're not like outraged, but I imagine that still plays as kind of weird.
It's very weird, and it's like it's hilarious because in the theater, I see that with someone, like not with them, but like there is someone in the theater that I see that movie and that goes like, "Oh snap, Deadpool!" And I'm like, what is he talking about? But yeah, that was Last Stand, everybody. I hope
Yeah,
that
I
the
hear his name was
commentary.
okay. That's Deadpool, but I'm assuming like he's just a fun Easter egg character. He won't actually become Deadpool in this movie. And then we get him, and he is an off-brand Mortal Kombat character.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm. That's Last Stand, everybody. I hope that the commentary gave you more to enjoy than the movie did. Or I don't know. Hey, if you really enjoyed this movie, then more power to you. I often feel that way myself. But yeah, looking forward to the next one, which will probably be, I don't know, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah,
I'm excited to just blow through it so we can get to my favorite X-Men movie, First Class.
yeah. But until then, thank you everyone for listening.